this is a circularity, and I love it. This is what embrace is. I embrace you by putting my arms around you. The circle is never ending, and you are secure within the circle. It's the minimum of boundary to that which is beyond. And it's equally strong at every point. You know, the turret on the castle that was safest was not angular, because you could knock the angles off with cannon fire. Whereas circular turrets tended to, well, it's harder to knock. You've got to knock into. You can't knock off. You simply have a tangent. Do you see? So they found that round towers were much safer than square ones. I realised this. I mean, don't get me wrong. I learnt this. I was told it, I suspect, by a teacher. When I was only something like 11, I was obsessed with building castles. Norman castles. You know, with bailey and keep and moats, and partly because my town of Rayleigh, small town in Essex, had a mount, and on that mount once had been a castle. The chap who built the castle, Swain, had fallen into dishonour with the king, and well, he got demoted, and his castle got taken to bits, and well, it was used to build the local church and various other things like Hadley Castle, I believe, which was probably belonging to the king at the time. I mean, big castles were, you know. Yeah, so there was nothing left of the castle, but, you know, castles, I mean, and of course I'm a boy, aren't I? I mean, Roman soldiers, and my team at school was called Romans, you know. We had 4 teams, Romans, Saxons, Danes and Normans, which were the people that had successfully invaded England, and I was in, my school team was Romans. I don't mean I was particularly, you know, we weren't that persuaded of the importance of school teams. It's a bit artificial to us, but yeah, castles. So let me get back to it. Circles. I'm a child of God. I know I am, because I believe God is my Father. And I wouldn't want to believe that if I wasn't a child of God. I think it's a bit of a circular argument. I want to believe it, and the fact that I do believe it is indication that I am what I'm believing. It's circular. Yeah, and it's impregnable. You know, the really major one I came across was when I was studying formal logic, and I've said this before, under Alistair MacIntyre. MacIntyre's quite a famous philosopher. He became famous as time went on. And he was teaching us logic, and he wanted to prove that the basic fundamentals of logic all turned on one principle, which was a thing cannot both be and not be. A thing cannot be both true and false. It's either true or false. And then he demonstrated by the other 9 or whatever it was, it may have been 11 points, but this point was valid. And of course the class were mopping this all up, and of course Big Ed here, you know, the boy with the ego, says, but isn't this argument circular? Because you validated the other points on this one, and now you're validating this one on the other points. And of course he loved this. He said, well, yes. You are quite right. I don't mean it was a revelation to him. I mean, he knew it was right, but what he was pleased with was, my God, one of my students can see this. Now, you might think it's pretty obvious now, because we're, you know, I don't know, 50 years down the line, you know, half a century later, and we're more used to reasoning and logic and philosophy and ideas and so on. So you might see that's as no great achievement, but it was quite something at the time. And of course, a tremendous lift to me. I mean, wow. I really felt, here's the ego again, I'm on a par with the great teacher. Wow. What am I going to be like when I'm an academic? For real. You know, I'm just a student at the minute. But of course, I also realized that, you know, that point that we're all students. Even McIntyre is a student, you see. And even I am still a student. And I'm the same with God, aren't I? I'm still a child of God. The chances of me catching him up are zero, except that's his decision. From my point of view. I don't know. But circularity, don't be too troubled by circular arguments. They're also impregnable, and that's a very interesting feature. Impregnability, safety, security, integrity. God is integrity. So, round turrets, not square ones, on castles. Thank you, Dan.